Well, a very warm welcome, and well, thank you so much for hosting us as well. What an incredible place, and as mentioned, so many different elements to the space and everything that you're doing. But I wanted to start off with some statistics because Dubai has been very much at the forefront of digital transformation and AI innovation. And I was reading that Dubai actually ranks among the top 3 cities globally for AI deployment. You've got more than 200 AI initiatives that have been launched across government entities. And you've got a commitment to train 1 million people in AI skills by 2027, which is really soon, actually. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe you could tell us more about the idea of a sovereign AI stack. What does that mean for nations? What does that look like when it comes to technological independence?
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I'd like to thank everyone also to choose Dubai Future Foundation to have this amazing meetings. And I've seen some of the roundtables in the morning, and it's quite exciting conversations. I think we're talking about, when we talk about AI, and I think a lot of people talk about the AI sovereignty stack. I think most of the people immediately start thinking about data and what is the data resides. And a lot of people think when we talk about sovereignty, it means we don't want to do any business. We just want to be on our own. And I think the misconception around it is massive. People forget to think about the sovereignty is all about 3 things. Number 1 is, yes, it's about data. We want to know where the data is, where is it stored, who controls it, who has access to it. That's quite important when we talk about sovereignty. The other part of it is actually I would call it the decision sovereignty. Now, when we have a lot of those AI applications running and there's a wrong decision is being made, who's accountable for it? That's what we mean by decision sovereignty. We want to make sure that we control these decisions that is being taken through AI. And the third one is obviously we want to say the optionality sovereignty. We want to make sure that all the systems that we're running, we have an option in it. We're not locked into a very specific vendor. If we want to change something tomorrow, we have the decision to be able to do it. We want to make sure that when we run systems, just because a policy has been changed in New York in the middle of the night, it doesn't mean that our systems here in 10 in the morning should stop. That's what we mean by sovereignty. And we want to make sure that we have the whole stack, if you would to call it, is within our reach. But what is great about that, because when you have sovereignty, it drives talent as well. And when you drive talent, you drive capabilities as well. And this is when we go with the 1 million, right? 1 million prompters, and that's one of the initiatives that we have here. And when we talk about human skills, we always thought about how can we actually increase the productivity of people within the city. And we understood right away that in order for us to increase our productivity or the way that we run day-to-day businesses, we needed to know how to talk to AI, how to speak to AI. And within less than 1 year so far, we had over 220,000 people actually have registered on our platform to learn prompt engineering. And what's interesting about that is because a lot of those companies like Google and Microsoft and the rest, they already have these applications up and running, and they have it for free, as a matter of fact. And we ask people, why are you actually on our platform? What's the reason? And interestingly enough, that a lot of those who responded said, because we know that this is a government initiative, you will not lock us in a specific system. So you're not forcing us to use only Copilot or use something else. For us, was an interesting finding. And I'd like to share today that also on 2 days from now, actually, we are launching the same initiative in Uzbekistan. We worked with them in the past on another initiative called the 1 million coders, and this one is 1 million prompters. But we upped the game this time, and it's going to be 5 million prompters in Uzbekistan. I'm sure they're gonna reach to it rather quickly. But again, this is all about knowledge transfer, all about making sure that we create that knowledge bridge between UAE and other countries.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, our children are going to be growing up with this. It's, it's in the curriculum already, I believe, or it's going to be. And then you get sort of like my parents that have literally no idea. So it's that sort of educational sort of AI literacy that's going to be needed sort of going forward. But national AI strategies, they differ so widely. And I suppose all of this is all about trust, because people at the end of the day do not like change. Everyone's quite happy to sit where they are. And then I suppose it's trust that sort of enables change, right? So what is that sort of approach when it comes to trust around governance and standards and responsible innovation as well?
Obviously, when we talk about trust, it's something really essential to us. Today, if you go ahead and run a new application within the government, and if this fails in any way, it will set us back, probably by years. But if there was one strong, trusted application that goes out of the government to the public and it works really well, it's probably going to set the ground for the next 10 companies to come through and do something amazing. When we look at companies like Australia, as a matter of fact, I'm trying to figure your accent so I don't say anything bad about Australia, but
it's not Australian, don't worry.
So Australia had this really, at least the intent behind this application was quite amazing. It's called the robo-debt. And it was all around being able to actually for any overpayment when it comes to welfare to the people, they wanted to sort of get it back. And the way that they went about it, they just use data that are systematic, but also they assume that everyone in Australia are going to get paid the same amount across the year. So they divided the expected annual income across the 12 months. What was interesting about that is that within 1 year, they've actually destroyed lots of families, because they ask people to pay the government back when in the first place they never got the money in. So a lot of people had seasonal jobs. So a few months they get paid well, other months they did not get paid well. But for the government to chase you and to say, give us the money that we gave you back, that never existed in the first place, it created lots of issues. As a matter of fact, the people sued the government, and the government had to pay over $1 billion Australian dollar. And that accounted for almost 600,000 families. Now, if you talk about AI in Australia today, you see a lot of hesitation, because they've seen what that could go wrong and what they can do better in it. When it comes to us, at least here as the Dubai Future Foundation or the Dubai Center of AI, we wanted to take a different approach to it. When we decided that we want to launch AI in every government entity, we've actually assigned a chief of AI in every government entity, because we wanted them to understand what data that they have, what can they do with the data, what are the use cases, and ensure that the data actually being trusted and the application are going forward. But when we thought about this project, and this is a story I'd like to share really quickly, is that when we wanted to put in a chief of AI officers in every government department, we were excited about the idea. But honestly, we stepped back and we said, if I was that chief of AI officer and I'm sitting in that, and I have been assigned to be that role within that government entity, I will be scared. I will feel like everybody's talking about AI. They will expect a whole lot from me. Probably I'm not going to do very well. So we said, let's lock this idea down for 1 year. Let's do something else. We literally chose almost 15 individual employees from each government entity, obviously with the right background. We trained them for a year on how to identify use cases. What does a good use case look like? What does a bad use case look like when it comes to AI implementation? Do you have the resources? Do you have the data? For 1 year, actually, we worked with them very closely, and we've launched over 70 pilots across the government of Dubai, within 1 year. The following year, we said, you know what? I think that each government entity now is ready. And we assigned the chief of AI officer. So now he's not only alone by himself there, but he also have tens of staffs are ready and have gone through the system. And I remember one of the use cases actually kind of relate to what we're doing here. And I know I'm talking a lot, but let me go through that. One of the AI use cases, and a lot of us think that AI use cases could be very hard, and some of them are really easy to implement. I was in a meeting with the civil defense, and they said, Saeed, we're spending millions on marketing campaign, and we were wondering how AI can help us. And immediately in my mind, why are you spending millions of dirhams for marketing campaign? I would imagine you buying, civil defense type of equipment, to put out fires. So they said, well, as you know, we are in the business of putting out fires. And in 3 days in the year, we literally have over 7 million fires in the city.
Wow.
I got scared for a second, and I said, well, you know what? I've never seen smoke, so hopefully that's a good thing. So I asked them to explain it more to me. And they immediately started talking about Diwali. And they said, because of Diwali, we actually run campaign for 6 months. Awareness campaigns around how people actually can operate all these candles within their homes to make sure that nothing goes wrong. That campaign takes 6 months from us. And I'm always pushing back, and I said, but that's still a lot of money to spend on a campaign. And the reality was, they're not only doing it for 1 language, they're doing it for 13 languages. And that's where the money is getting sunk. And for them, it was a really easy use case because all of them have seen the avatars of AI, and a lot of them actually can translate on the fly. Within 48 hours, we were able to translate over 23 languages, and we were able to roll it out. So for them, it saved 6 months of working, despite how easy it is, but also saved a lot of money on the way. So making sure that the government entities actually trust AI as well as the public, I think that's where we're spending lots of time in.
Well, it's so interesting. Yeah, I think that does deserve a round of applause. I mean, it's so interesting, as you said, this trust element, because, you know, at the end of the day, you're very future focused. Future is the priority, but you're transparent about it as well. We're also in a very sort of young age of AI. We're only sort of 2 and a bit years in, I believe. So I know it's been around for a long time, but it could, on the commercial level. So obviously, you know, it's very different in terms of, you know, getting it right, and you have to get it right, I suppose, as well. Sadly, we are running out of time, but I really wanted to just very quickly touch on this India-UAE partnership and collaboration and the history that you have with India as well. How do you see collaboration between the two nations in areas such as governance, digital identity, AI capacity building? How do you see that sort of like evolving over time?
Yeah, I think one of the things that sort of unify, I would say, India and the UAE is that we really built digital systems for populations, right? We are in a position today that we are actually leading the pack rather than just watching and trying to see what others are doing. We obviously have now so many things that are happening with India, whether our digital banks are working together, whether the unicorns from India are actually opening offices and operating from here. As a matter of fact, in December, I'll be in Kerala as well, talking to a lot of the startups there. So it's always been exciting for us. And like Abdulaziz, my colleague here, the relationship that we have in India has been so long, and it's in everything that we do on a daily basis. We wear wizars, you guys wear wizars, and that's how we got it from. We're not wearing the white pants like Saudis and others. We're wearing actually wizars, and these are our underwears, and these guys know. So when it's funny because when I take my son to the mall and they see some people actually walking in their traditional clothes, and my son will be like, why are they wearing underwears and walking in the mall? But I'm like, no, this is actually what it's supposed to be. We're using it the wrong way. But look, I think there's a lot of collaboration happening with India. I cannot tell you the amount of interest that we have as well as they have in what we're doing. And I think the south-south sort of relationship that we're doing here, it's moving so fast. As a matter of fact, specifically around regulations, we want to make sure that the regulation between India and UAE works very well together. It doesn't have to be the same, but it has to work together. So if a company opens if an Indian company do well in India and they want to open in Dubai, we should be able to show the clear path on opening and operating in Dubai rather than having a set of rules and regulations that will prevent them. And this is what we've seen across the world. But I think there's a lot of things in common, and I think it's and I don't like to position it or frame it to say this is the start of something, because it's always been there, and it feels it's only natural that it continues.
Sadly, we've run out of time. I mean, we could chat on this subject for hours and hours, but we cannot thank you enough for lending us your time and also for welcoming us so nicely here and hosting us, of course, as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Saeed Al-Falassi. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really fantastic to have you here once again. Thank you so much. Thank you. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to continue this conversation on what happens when nations decide to build intelligence on their own terms. And I'm now going to invite some of the leaders pushing the boundaries of security, deep tech investment, and AI innovation. But we have our first poll question for you. So please do make sure you scan that QR code. Let's see what we've got here. Do we have our first poll question that we can pop up for our audience that'll very nicely move us into our next session? Right, I think this might have been a previous previous question, or maybe you've answered it already. There we go. Okay, who would you trust to run your country's AI? Maybe this was open before. We are going to let you have a moment to answer that. I'm going to get our guests on stage and then we'll reveal the results at the end. But this is your question. Who would you trust to run your country's AI? Please do fill that in as we now welcome our next guests. So let's welcome our panelists. First and foremost, let's welcome Vinayak Godse, who is the CEO of the Data Security Council of India, who joins us here today. Welcome. You can sit on the second seat there. We also have Ayush Gupta, who is the CEO of Genloop, who's with us here today. Welcome to Ayush. We're also joined by Amin Starley, who's the CEO and managing partner of DeepMinds, also joins us. Is he here with us? Not right now. Hopefully he might join us in a little bit. But in the meantime, let's welcome our third panelist, Archana Jahagirdar, who is the founder and managing partner at Rukam Capital. Right, here we go, our first panel discussion of the day. Very excited to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us, first and foremost. Right, let's jump straight into this. What happens when nations decide to build intelligence on their own terms? That's our session here today. And now, Vinayak, as someone who very much works as the intersection of national security, digital trust, as the CEO of the Data Security Council over in India, do you believe that a country can truly own its AI? Or do you think this type of technology is way too sort of global to fence in? What do you think?
Yeah, so if you look at the AI that we talk after 2022, right, it's a global wisdom that you are using to, is it working? Yeah, now it's working, yeah.
How we doing?
So it's like a global wisdom that you are using to solve your individual problems, right, or use case that you're looking at, right? So that's what the large planet level models bring to a table, right? And we know there are definitely frontier models now, the kind of capability that they have, and they can really reduce down the cost of making your system more intelligent. And that's why we see a lot of rush and the kind of investment that is going in terms of building those models. More importantly, the compute is one of the important challenge area, because you need to train large sort of data, and also inference you need to compute. So there is definitely challenge in terms of the compute infrastructure, the kind of chips that you need, and India had been trying hard with this India AI mission to get these GPUs. We are almost 38,000 GPUs in the country, and we are trying to scale that effort. So one is the GPU. Second important part is the model development. We have been almost 22 companies are building different models, and government is supporting that quite intensely. But third important thing, I think, one is the commercial, public or civil work, right? But when it comes to the national security and defense work, right, probably there is not much trust on the use of this global model, and there I think a lot of efforts needs to be done in terms of building your own thing, right? Where you can get infrastructure, there is not much challenge of getting infrastructure, although availability of chip is definitely a challenge. But building the model with those kind of data that most of the defense forces nowadays and national security, they have been trying to look at how can they build model foundationally depending on the requirements, basically, right? It's not easy. The kind of gap is getting widening day by day. It's not easy to build national level AI for various different kind of reason, but for national security, for defense forces, for defense requirement, you probably need very specific attention to this.
Really interesting. I wanted to move to the sort of infrastructure side of all of this as well. Now, I understand that Genloop is one of 12 companies, by the way, building foundational LLMs for India. That was recently announced, wasn't it, by the government of India's India AI mission. So, in your perspective, do you think a country can ever really be independent if it's sort of chips and cloud infrastructure, etc., is sort of, it originates elsewhere? And sort of how realistic is true digital sovereignty today in your mind?
Right. So first of all, thank you for having me here. AI is global in inputs, but local in consequences. So to that vision of having everything inside the country, that is not commercially feasible. Countries or the consumers in the companies, the application builders in the company will continue to use services that are giving them the best buck for their dollars, basically best ROIs. But from a sovereign angle, why do the countries want to have a sovereign AI model? Is it that is because they want to secure the supply chains, because in the coming decades, AI is going to become one of the foundational and fundamental pillars of growth. So what happens in adverse situations? Can you have your AI secure against adverse situations and have sovereign backups? Let's say, as the executive director just before was talking about, a policy change in New York should not switch off your models that are running critical infrastructure in the country. So from the sovereign AI space, of course, there's this initiative that let's have local talent that can build this, because if it is going to be so important and so strategically important for the governments, we should have the capability to build it ourselves and use it in critical areas like defense, governments, etc. And the other is, in adverse situations, do we have a plan B or a backup plan that we can fall to? And that includes the entire stack for chips. Of course, it's hard to imagine a country being able to make chips as good as NVIDIA today, but can we at least have a stock of those chips whenever things go south? In terms of data, can we have local data residencies or policies that make sure that our consumers' data is not going out? In terms of inference, could that inference be served from the local space? In terms of safety for the consumers, can we make sure that AI does not become a tool for propaganda? It is very much safe for the consumers to use at large. So those are the angles with which countries will evaluate the sovereign AI and the infrastructures.
Really interesting. I mean, none of this gets off the ground, though, without sort of the proper funding and the money and investment that's in place, of course, as well. So, Archana, from that investment lens, what sort of policies and capital flows and sort of talent strategies as well do you think governments should really prioritize today to really help build those AI systems that are to make sure that we've got global competition on the one hand, but also we're still protecting sort of citizens' rights, etc., and those demographic values at the same time, right?
So we are living in a moment of deglobalization. I think it's quite clear that the era of globalization is pretty much over. And, even if the US has a different president a couple of years from now, not sure those years are going to come back. So in light of that, both from a risk capital perspective, technology build perspective, I think every country has to look at it from a local lens completely. The Indian government recently has announced a very large R&D fund, which is risk capital for specifically deep tech and AI. And I think, to the earlier point, can India build great chipsets? Maybe not now, but should it? I think the answer is absolutely yes. And I think, when you look at China, you look at some of the countries which have done a remarkable job. So what does India really need? I think the two key parts India needs is, of course, a high volume of risk capital. And literally it needs high volume because there are different layers that need to be solved. So the semiconductor is one part, the compute is another, then there's the cloud, and then there's the talent piece as well, right? And I'm not even coming to the use case and the business case for all of this. So I think the governments will have to back it with sovereign wealth funds and sort of sovereign capital to back it. A lot of domestic capital needs to be unlocked so that there are deep pools of capital. And I think countries which are lucky to have both talent and the ability to unlock domestic capital will be able to build the sovereign stack, so to speak. And I think India has that. I mean, we do have the engineering talent definitely in-house in abundance. And given the size of our economy and the speed at which that economy is growing, I think we do have, and then there is a government with intent. So I think all of those things come well. And I think now there's a greater understanding. So when this current government and our current Prime Minister, when he came into power about 11 years ago for the first term, that's when the data localization piece started. Until then, I mean, we were pretty casual about our data and where it resided. So the fact that we've been building up in a sense to this moment, whether knowingly or unknowingly, has been a net positive, at least as far as we as a nation are concerned. And I think if we want to be the third largest or the fourth largest economy in the world, we've got to have the capital, sovereign capital, and a sovereign stack for AI.
Now, sadly, we are running out of time. We've actually run out of time. But I wanted to give you one sort of last, final, rapid-fire question, and you can elaborate as you like. But do you think, this is just a question to all of you, if AI could rewrite national policy more efficiently than people can, would you let it? And what is that model in your mind going forward anyway?
So my answer will be at least yes, to help me to achieve that coverage and also give attention to all the nuances and details that it helps me to do that, and it also helps me to become more contextual to my requirement. So it's actually, in a way, so big problem that all of us we face is basically our thinking usually is very intuitive and very time centric, and you probably struggle, and that's what the global wisdom that I talked about will bring to the table, right? So it will give me the various dimensions I need to cover. It will help me to various elements that I need to give attention to, and from that I can find how can I put it together basically. Sometimes I struggle to know all those dimensions, all of those kind of areas that I need to be mindful of to devise a policy. So in public policy making, I believe AI will play a very significant role.
It almost needs to be like a sort of hybrid model at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, somebody has to put it together, right? Stitching has to be there, but you can use AI for do a lot of those things, basically.
Yeah. So many different things, but it's going to be intertwined, I think, no matter what, isn't it? Ayush, over to you. What do you think?
So I would suggest, or I'll be happy having it as a co-pilot for information and back office automation, but I would not trust AI to decide, because eventually it's the governments and the elected representatives that should be the one deciding the public policy.
At the end of the day, you go on these apps, like let's say ChatGPT, and you cannot take it as 100% fact. I mean, that's just the sort of start of it, I suppose, isn't it? But as you mentioned, yeah, it needs to be co-pilot, it needs to be a human-led. Yes, over to Archana.
I think there's going to be 100% consensus without AI on this panel. See, the problem with AI today is not sentient. And human beings, we respond to so many points of stimuli and reasons which are illogical, logical, semi-logical, if there's a term like that. So I think till AI gets to that point, I do think, like both our panelists have said, that we do need a mix of both.
A hybrid version. I'm terribly sorry, but yeah, we've run out of time. I mean, they're very quick, short, sharp conversations here today, but we cannot thank you enough for being with us. Any further questions to any of our panelists? I'm hoping that you'll all have discussions in the networking break that's coming up a little later on. But in the meantime, let's give our panel a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, guys.
And wonderful to have you all here. Thank you so much once again. Thank you. Thank you so much. Right, ladies and gentlemen, let's find out what our poll results were from earlier. What did we ask? Who would you trust to run your country's AI? 74%. I think that was pretty obvious. Your government and private companies, 26%. Still a good 26% there. So interesting results.